Hello, everybody. It's Joe Neely again. It's exciting to be back on video. I felt the honest, excited desire to share my realizations with you. I used to do a lot of this during my travel phase on my bicycle and also during my home phase where I was sharing a lot about Starlight. And for some reason, this desire has just naturally started up again, and I'm having a really great time with it. So, wow. What I realized this morning, laying in bed as I do, listening to Abraham before I wake more fully up, I realized, just like the other day, flipping guilt around and making it a positive, flipping around the idea of scarcity. If I feel myself in scarcity, I think, oh no, I'm in scarcity. If I am in scarcity, I won't get what I want. I won't be abundant. Oh no. And I judge myself for being in this lower vibration place, which only perpetuates lower vibrations, of course, right? I get into guilt about feeling guilty or guilt about feeling scarcity. So this one really builds on the one from the other day. It's funny to see how all these things are connected in our experience and in our minds. The psychology of clinging to what we know instead of going on adventures. And as a person who loves adventures and has so many of them, I have to let go more and more and more and more because a lot of people never have that adventure until maybe they get retired and buy that RV or something. They wait their whole life to have their adventure. And guess what? I already did one. I already did a really big one, the kind that some people have once in a lifetime. And I'm not going to settle for once in a lifetime. I want more than once. So I have to let go of a whole new batch of stuff. I have to recognize a new batch of clinging and a new batch of scarcity and guilt and all this stuff so I can let go of it and have an even bigger adventure. So that's what I'm doing, and that's what I'm sharing with you. Scarcity is a positive thing. We use it when we get overwhelmed. When you live in abundance, and I learned this from video games. I've played a certain video game enough. It's called Merge Dragons for those of you who care about video games. I'm a little embarrassed of my love of video games, but not so much that I won't share it. I guess I learned that grown men are not supposed to play children's games that are cute and adorable, but guess what? That's what I do. And I play this adorable game, and I've gotten far enough with it that I feel this abundance. As you progress in the game, you can earn more and more fun, more and more abundance, more and more things that just show up, things you can interact with and play with and develop and scooch around the screen, and you could just have a wonderful time. Okay, great. So the more you get involved in this, the more that you play around and make choices, you get a chance to experience abundance. You get a chance to experience a lack of focus that comes with abundance. When you have scarcity, when there's only one thing you can do, if I don't go to my job, I will starve and be homeless and my family will be on the street, right? Not that homeless people don't find a way to stay alive, but it is a whole lot more uncomfortable. You might be hungry sometimes. You might find it more difficult to find places to, sleep, go to the bathroom, take care of your basic needs, right? I know a fair number of homeless people who, get by in their way. But you may find their lifestyle uncomfortable physically or just uncomfortable socially. Human beings are wired to feel uncomfortable at the bottom of a social ladder because, that's related to breeding. Those at the top of the social ladder have better access to higher quality mates. However, we judge that. And we humans are wired to, desperately seek the top of the ladder because our genes want to be passed on to the next generation. And so our genes will reward or punish us for behaviors that get us to the top of that ladder. Our genes don't know what behaviors in 2019 will get us to the top. We're not programmed for one set of lifestyles or behaviors or actions. Our genes don't know. They just reward us when we get to the top and punish us when we don't. So some people, I'm sure, are very happy being homeless, and some people are very unhappy. Just as there's people near the top of the social ladder who want to be a little higher and are desperately unhappy about that. That just has to do with maybe how heavily we're wired to feel good or bad based on status, and how much we're able to turn that on or off according to our desire. How much we can edit our computer code inside of our head. I wonder if some people have a greater ability to edit their own code, or blindly follow a program that they can't stop. I wonder. They say some people are born addicts. Maybe those are people who can't edit their code that says, yes, go, take that meth or some other hard drug that's really bad for you, because it feels so good, because they're wired to feel so good about that. Their reward mechanism is really strong for that chemical compared to other people, and so they get hooked. I don't know how that works, but it's somewhere in that direction. I love these videos because I start with a wonderful realization and then I tangent like I just did, and it really adds richness and depth to the main point, and it really helps me communicate not just the concept that I've realized, but the meaning of it, the feeling of it, what that concept means on a much more full and round and deep and rich level. So I was talking about scarcity being a focusing mechanism. And that very much has to do with when you're in lack, there's only so many things to do. I was describing a feeling of lack and how, some people feel it more than others, and people feel it across the status spectrum. People feel that they have to stay at the level of status they are or they will die, which isn't true because there's a lot of people living on the street. But they have this false idea that you have to somehow stay where you are, maintain your social place in the pecking order, and then get ahead if you can, but certainly not fall behind. And that is a big part of scarcity. We feel that there isn't enough. Of course there's enough, but we feel that there isn't enough to stay ahead of the Joneses, that if someone else develops a talent, or maybe they come into alignment with happiness about some subject at work, and then they get a promotion because they're doing so great at this thing and they just love it, people feel scarcity really strongly. And I think a lot of it has to do with getting ahead of others, which, no judgment. I'm not judging people for being that way. That's a huge part of our genetic wiring. Those creatures, animals, plants, whatever, those organisms that want to get ahead, do better than those that just are happy where they are. You can see how those who are desperate to rise up will pass their genes on more successfully to other generations. The the trick is that a lot of us want to have happy lives, and we don't want to mindlessly serve our genetic, inclination to get ahead, because our genes will will be passed on to our next generation. But will we? Will our consciousness be passed on? Or will that live on in our children who, if you've been around children much, you may have realized that their consciousnesses are very different than their parents. You know, they pass on some of their parents' beliefs or perspectives or, genetic wiring, but not all of it. Children can be quite different than those that brought them on. So I don't know that mindlessly searching for better ways for ourselves and our families to survive or get higher up the social ladder, I don't know if that really satisfies us. Satisfies some people, and if you enjoy it, go ahead and do it. But the development of consciousness is almost a hindering factor against evolution, of blindly doing whatever we can to serve our genes and, move them ahead, make sure they survive. There's a lot of people who don't want to have children because they want to have a happy life that doesn't include children. Some people find happiness in kids, some people don't. And people who feel really, really great not having kids, well, oh gosh, that doesn't serve our genetic wiring very well. Of course, in a world where there's lots and lots of ways to enjoy sex and intimacy without having kids, the genetics that created our intelligence, that created birth control and all the different ways to remain safe and happy without having kids and, still have sex. Well, guess what? That intelligence that came from our genetics is now hindering genetics because a lot of very smart, happy people are just not having kids. So the reward of the enjoyment of sex, which, long ago was pretty much guaranteed to result in children, doesn't anymore. So it's really funny to see that through happiness, consciousness, and just straight up technology, we are changing what it means to evolve. We are no longer evolving in this competition with each other to see who can have more healthy, successful, educated children and push them ahead down the timeline. The evolution of consciousness and the evolution of a species, and a species seeing itself as a global organism entwined with all species, this is all new stuff, Some people point to an ancient Gaia where humans lived with the land, but I really just see that as a time where we didn't have enough technology to, burn down a forest so that we could have more healthy, successful children. We just didn't quite have it in us at that time. Sure, we had fire, we could burn down forest if we wanted to, but we depended on the forest to survive. But now as agriculturalists, we can grow food on a burned down forest area and for a little while enjoy the richness of all that organic matter in the soil until we, farm out the soil and then it becomes a wasteland, of course. But I'm tangenting again. It feels so good to do that. I get a hold of a magnificent concept and then I just tangent with you guys around the subject with all these wonderful metaphors and side stories that tie in to the main concept. I can feel myself returning to it now. The main concept for today is scarcity. It is focus. It is this idea that scarcity, if you feel it, it's a false feeling, but if you feel it, it does have a positive. We as, people who enjoy the law of attraction and, new thought and all this kind of stuff, we like the idea that scarcity is somehow bad and that abundance is good because we enjoy existential thought that doesn't involve being subjugated to powerful people. We're freeing existential thought from, a religion that was very, very effectively co-opted by the Roman Empire. So, we're enjoying this freedom and abundance and the idea that it's good to own things. Getting away from religious thought that says it's difficult for rich people to enter heaven, or, you know, the last will become first. Those ideas were very appealing to other people long ago. Those ideas helped other people live better, happier lives long ago. You know, in some cases, and in other cases, it certainly co-opted people and helped them remain content as subjugated peoples. So I don't know if feeling happy as a slave, I guess it's better than feeling sad as a slave, but I wouldn't stop there. I would keep going until you're not a slave. Look at the Jewish communities who continued to revolt against the Roman Empire throughout its history. I would lean more in that direction personally. But anyway, it's hard to talk about scarcity because I don't want to believe in it. I keep tensioning away from it. But I realized today that it is positive when you get overwhelmed. You can look at lack and survival of the fittest and, oh my gosh, I have to do this job I hate for, 20 hours a day or whatever it is in order to get ahead. And that's the only way to survive, or I will die, or my family will die, or all these terrible things will happen that I believe will happen. I mean, it's not true, but this is what people believe. It's so hard for me to talk about scarcity and lack because I just don't believe in it. But anyway, scarcity is focus. It's like an artificial focus. If you believe you only have one pathway in life, I've been doing this job for 20 years, and so people pay me a lot of money to do it. If I did some other job, I'd get paid little or no money to do it. But if I do this thing that I know how to do and that, I really can't stand and I've never really enjoyed, then I'll make more money than any other job, and I have to make the most possible amount of money, because if I make less money than myself and my family, we have a lesser chance of survival. If I do this other job, we might have a 98% chance of survival, and 2% just isn't okay. I really want a 99% chance of survival, so I'm going to do this thing I hate and make myself and my family miserable, which I think we all know really isn't worth it. So anyway, I'm not recommending scarcity. I just want you to forgive yourself when you are in it. I want you to see it as an easy focus. If you tell yourself the only way to get by is this one path, this one job, this one lifestyle, this one whatever, this one religion, this one community, whatever it is, if you tell yourself that, you will feel a clarity of there's only one path and I follow it, and I'm not overwhelmed by possibilities. Remember I told you about the video game with all the abundance? You play it for a few weeks, and you build up all these wonderful things as you continue to create more and more within the game. Well, there's so many avenues to explore. You can't explore them all at once. When I started the game, I was happy just to play it for a while because, with, online games, you typically have to pay if you want to play the game for a long time. Otherwise, they let you play for a short time, then you have to stop and wait a while, as a way to get you to pay, right? They only give you so much. So there's a scarcity built in so that the people who make games can, have money. And I recommend that you spend a small amount of money on games, not all of your money, but some of it, to, give these game developers some money because they're entertaining you. I don't recommend that you fall into the addiction of paying with an emotional desperation for games. You could certainly pay far too much and not have money for other stuff. But hey, if you want to experience an addiction, I guess that's one path you can take. I like moderation with that kind of thing. I like to give them just a small amount of money for these games. So anyway, there's scarcity in games, and you can play around with it if you want. It's not for me. I know that when I run out of things to do in the game, I just go do something else. Play something else or get up and do something else. Doesn't matter. But I got to a point where I've played it enough that I have now, not by paying money just by spending time in the game, there's so many avenues. There's an abundance of things to do that I will never run out. I could play this game 24/7 and never run out of stuff to do. So I choose, do I want to play with this part of it or that part of it, or do I want to go over here or over there? Or do I want to work on this thing today? Or should I really focus on this today? That's a wonderful thing, and it's a wonderful game that allows you to get to that place where it's like life. There's so many possibilities of things to focus on that you can never do them all at once. And I found myself missing the clarity of scarcity. If there were only so many things to do in the game before you run out of points or tokens or feathers or whatever, well, then you stop after a little while, right? Or you say, well, there's only one part of the game to work on today, so I'll work on this part. Well, guess what? When you stay happy long enough and you get abundance, you will lose the clarity of scarcity of, well, there's only one thing I can do to survive. If I do anything else, I'll die, so I have to do this. In the game, there's only one thing to do. There's only one thing to interact with. If I interact with this thing, it's pretty boring. I can move it around the screen, but I can't do anything with it because it's on a timer. I have to wait. That's scarcity. Well, guess what? You're not living in scarcity. Not anymore. And when you get to a certain part, a certain level, a certain feeling of abundance, you either just drift around doing whatever's fun in the moment. I do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do that. Or you're going to find clarity. You get to a level of abundance where you simply get to choose. There are lots of things you can do to make money, to live. It's not just one job. There are lots of communities you can be in to find love and support, not just one, right? When you let go of the idea that there's only one way, all of a sudden, you get to choose. You can flip from one to the other if you want, but it's often nice to focus on one area and get really good at it too. So you actually get to this point where you're drifting until you choose what you want. You're drifting because you can afford to drift. If you couldn't afford to drift, if you genuinely could only do one thing to survive, if you were a peasant farmer in ancient India and growing mung beans was the only thing you could do to live. I don't know where mung beans come from, but I'm assuming ancient India. But let's say, hey, if there's genuinely only one thing to do to survive, you do that. And you find happiness within it, and you don't resist it with the desire to do something else, and you have a great time. But if you can afford to drift, you do, until you choose what you really, really want to do. Naturally, you'll just drift around to all of your abundant areas of your life and choose what you like the most. Might be a handful of things you want to pull together into something new, that you want to synthesize into something new from all these different areas. Or maybe it's one area of life that you love so much that you just want to make a huge part of your life. I do both. There are some things that I absolutely love that I know I want to do all the time. Travel. I want to travel every day and explore every day, and big trips and little trips all the time, every day. I love travel. I love exploring. I love going to new places and meeting new people. But I also like going back to places and forming community with people. I also love letting people know me and know what I'm good at. Let people know some of the deeper things that I'm good at that may not come out on a first meeting. And, I love to pull together yoga and meditation and spirituality into intimacy and love and, I don't know, dare I say romance and relationships, and finding a sweet spot in relationships between philandering and monogamy between long and short-term relationships. I think there's a whole lot of creativity in the middle between those extremes of, a lifetime marriage and finding a new person on Tinder a couple times a day, to satisfy your whim. I think there's something in the middle. And for me, that's where there's so much creativity. But yeah, it's a matter of pulling together all these different things that we love, that we're attracted to, into new stuff and creating new stuff that maybe no one's ever seen before, that we can show to others and have that be our value in the world. Everything from role playing and power games and what should I say, dominance and submission, and people playing different roles that they love within relationships, to using those in a loving way to create intimacy and to foster your meditation or your yoga. There's so much connection between all the different things that we love in life, all of the different things that thrill us in life. Traveling and creating community. Well, I can travel to different communities and foster communities. I can connect communities who are separate from each other geographically, but have so much in common, right? Be a go-between who fosters community across state boundaries between groups that have so much in common. Between, the spiritual community and the pervert community, all this kind of stuff. There's so much that can be drawn together. I'm describing my mission right now, but you'll have yours. You'll find who you are by drifting through all the different abundance around you and choosing what feels so good to you. I love talking on these videos, so I do. I love traveling. I love meeting people. I love taking yoga classes or meditation classes to expand my own perspective and find out how other people do things. I don't know. It's just fascinating to me how many ways there are to live life and how we can dip into that richness because we can afford abundance. We can afford that lack of false clarity that comes with scarcity, and we can just float around and feel a true decision making and a true choice making within ourselves, within our deepest selves, and then we can communicate that to other people in such a genuine, deep way, in a way that instantly shows our deep connection, honesty, integrity, belief, trust, all of that to the world. So anyway, I appreciate you listening. I hope you get the main point among all my tangents and explanations and explainer stories. This main point that there's a safety and security in the clarity of scarcity. And that as you grow into abundance, you will find yourself drifting in more of a general state. Maybe I'll try this, maybe I'll try that, maybe I'll do this today, maybe I'll do that today. And your belief that the only way to survive is through a very narrow focus on one thing that you probably don't love and enjoy, well, you just move beyond that, and it's okay. And even if other people who are still living in that kind of a mentality try to hold you back, or if your beliefs that you gained as a kid that made you a hard worker and got you as far as you did, well, those beliefs are valuable, and I don't want you to hate them. They gave you focus and clarity at a time when you needed them. It's like a skin that you shed. The snake doesn't hate its old skin, it loves its old skin, but it grows a new, glistening, beautiful skin that comes after. And guess what? The skin of all the things and beliefs and ideas that I've shared with you in this video, guess what? They're all going to change. You're going to grow out of these too. So don't get attached. Just use them and ride in them as a vehicle You know, having a sports car is great till you get an airplane. I mean, having an airplane is great till you get a rocket ship. And having a rocket ship is great until you don't need one and you can travel beyond the speed of light with your own thought that goes beyond the physics we know, right? A thought that is no longer based on matter. I got that idea from this lovely movie called Her that you may enjoy. I know it's on Netflix right now, and it talks about where consciousness goes beyond where we're at right now and all the cool places that it could go next. So, yeah, use this world and the things of this world, your beliefs about how you get ahead in this world, your job, your lifestyle, your community, the things that you value and you're stuck to, and the things that you could release, let go of. Use it all as a way to, focus and understand yourself and not go super general and, have some experiences here in this physical world. And then see it all not as some desperate climbing in status, but just a way to learn lessons. I believe that if we do go somewhere after this life, and I think we do, but no one knows for sure. That's part of the fun in not knowing. I believe that if we do go somewhere, well, we're going to take with us our lessons that we've learned, the new cutting edge that we've gotten to in our lives, the new kind of leveling up of belief and trust and faith and exploration and joyfulness and individuality and freedom and risk and adventure. Those things are what we're going to take with us, not our physical bodies. Some people believed that they had to bury the body so that we would be able to have it resurrected zombie fashion. Other people might believe that you needed to burn a body so that it will float up into the heavens where the gods live. But let's face it, that type of thought is old-fashioned to us now. What is most us, what is most true to us, is our experience of life and what we learn from it. And if there's anything that's going to be resurrected, not a body, some people believe in reincarnation, that you'll be reincarnated with a new body. Okay, great. Then you get to be a kid and be weak and be not able to really be an individual for a while. And you have to do what other people say more often than not. I guess you could be reincarnated as a child who's free, who doesn't have those boundaries maybe, but even the idea of reincarnation has a fair amount of limits to it. Are you waiting around to become an adult so you can do what you really want to do and pick up where you left off? I guess the freshness of being a child might help you go beyond even your need for those things, but ultimately, there is a fair amount of limit in reincarnation, as much as in those other beliefs. So I honestly think that what we take with us is this learning, this releasing of old beliefs and adopting even better ones, of honoring where we were and loving where we are and where we're going. I think that's a much more complete understanding of what may be after death. Ultimately, no one knows what will be after. That's, like I said, part of the experience of this place, of not knowing. Some people will believe so hard that they'll try to convince you they know for sure, but if people are honest, no one knows for sure. And a hard belief, an unflinching belief that is so hard it cannot grow, is really just fear of death and not love of life. So I don't know what will happen, but I'm imagining the best possible things I can think of what will happen after death because, hey, isn't that the coolest thing we can do? Is focus on the very, very, very best that we can imagine and then create it? Imagine the very, very best things that could possibly be and then make them happen? That's what gods do. We invented God figures to be imaginers and creators. We invented these kind of superhero-like gods to represent different aspects of ourselves, and we put creator gods near the top of that list, especially in religions that have, multiple gods. We would put the ones that had the creation of universes at their fingertips. We put them at the top of everything, along with the ones that maintained the cycle of life and death, birth and death, goddesses of birth and fertility were also very high up, along with those that would create worlds. And, of course, the gods that represented death and decay and rebirth were very important. So we have to acknowledge these stories and these kind of mythological superhero characters as parts of ourselves. We venerate the parts of ourselves that are involved with the creation of the very worlds that we experience. We venerate those very highly. By projecting them outside of ourselves, we can talk about them and analyze them more easily than when they're inside of us. So take a look at yourself as a developing consciousness, as a being, as someone even more precious than the gods that you create, and a very powerful creator, just beginning in this experience to recognize the vast power you have to create your life and your universe and your community. Don't be afraid of the responsibility. Just revel in it, because there's no way to make a mistake. There's no way to do anything wrong. There's no way to stop yourself from creating beautiful things at the edge of experience. And that's it. I just felt myself come to an end, so I'll share this with the world, and I'll be back with you when I feel it. Bye-bye.